So the problem when managing a remote team is how to make sure they are actually working and not simply watching TV or sleeping. If you call them, they will just pretend that they are working and you can't have a camera to monitor their activities. So how to do? More and more you can notice that we are working remotely, and for sure I believe this has become the new standard. With current communication technologies, companies do not have to rent expensive offices anymore. Nope. And there's no need to have employees losing hours in the traffic to commute every day. Nowadays, most of our daily tasks can be done with a computer and an internet connection. So let me give you a few tips about how to manage your remote team effectively. So tip number one is to forget about the old model. The first thing I see is managers expecting people to work in the same clock in, clock out model. This model is dead. Your employees are at home anyway, so technically, because they work from home, they are in the office all the time. Since there is no clock in, clock out system, give more freedom to your employees. Some would want to start later or finish earlier because they have a family to take care of, and that's perfectly fine. However, I do agree that you want to define a certain common working time for which you can call and set meetings. You need to define a ground rule to avoid one employee working too early and the other one too late. You need to have a common overlapping time for meetings. Does it make sense? Tip number two. Forget about paying by the hour. So the clock in, clock out system being dead, don't focus on how many hours they're working. This is old school, but instead focus on what they've done. What I really like is to pay by project. So basically, I don't care how many hours they work. The only thing I care about is whether the job is done. That's why I like to work with contractors. They work whenever and wherever they want. The only thing I need is the final result. Contractors are easy to hire and easy to fire. Now, for sure, you will still need some traditional employees. So how do you know if they are working on the project or just sleeping? And I agree, that is difficult to know. Even myself, I don't know. So the idea is to compare employee to employee. You give two employees similar task and you compare how productive they are. Again, it's not about the number of hours worked. It is about if at the end of the day the job is done. You can have someone working long hours and delivering a poor job, mediocre, and someone working only 2 hours per day and producing better work than anybody else. Then I don't care. Good for him. So compare your employees and very quickly you will know who is actually productive or not. Tip number three, leverage overseas employees. So what's the point to have a remote team if you don't leverage other countries? The idea is that you can get cheaper employees. And actually, I like to see the other way around. I get employees that feel being well paid for what they do. For example, let's suppose you work in the US and you hire a Mexican that you pay 10% less than your other employees. 10%. But he feels well paid in his country compared to other Mexicans. He is getting, let's say, 50% more than what pays the market in Mexico. That feeling actually boosts him to work harder for you. And I have seen that. Work more, deliver more, high motivation. And of course, sometimes that's not the case, then don't keep that person. But the idea is to have people that feel they're being well paid because the outcome is incredible. They do more work, more engagement, and they complain less. So try it, you won't regret it. One note when hiring overseas employees is that I really recommend choosing people of the same time zone to work common hours. You can still have people in the different time zone, but it should be very limited. I have only one person working in a different time zone. And the good thing is, if I absolutely need something done overnight, that's the only reason to have people in a different time zone. Tip number 4 is to maintain engagement. One of the issues with a remote team is that employees naturally talk less to each other, like much less. And usually there is a lot of discussions that happen at the water cooler, isn't it? And these discussions are actually necessary because it builds a team spirit. The team needs to feel connected to each other. So you need to create those moments virtually to get your employees together and get them to enjoy time with each other. So what you can do is some kind of online games or create some virtual rooms that employees have to join at the same time for a few minutes, like a coffee break. The idea is really to have employees to spend time with each other that is other than work time. Tip number 5, be ready to fire when necessary. So that's the difficult part, but I think it is necessary to talk about it, especially in a remote team. When working remotely, you will realize it is much easier to find people because they don't have to live nearby. They just need to live in the same time zone. So it will open a lot of opportunities to find fresh, new, motivated people and leverage that. In an organization, people come and go. It is a normal process. Of course, having a high turnover is a bad thing, but having a low turnover or no turnover at all is also bad. Why? Because what I realize is that people are not all the time motivated in a job. Sometimes you have a very motivated person joining your organization, but then losing traction a year later. And usually they lose traction when they feel bored at work or when they gain a lot of experience in the company and just feel too much empowered. And when it happens, it is time to let them go to another department or another company. And you may think it is bad. It is a tough decision, but what I realize is that it is also beneficial for the employee. What? Yes, firing an employee can be tough, but good for the employee. Hey, look, I've been fired twice in my first companies, and that was the best thing to happen to me. We human beings don't like change, so we settle in a situation that sometimes we just don't like. And most of the time we need a wake-up call that tells us it is time to change. Look, if I'm not performing because I don't like my job or the environment, then leaving the organization is the best decision. And yes, it is painful and I may not find the right fit right away. It may take 1 or 2 tries or 1 or 2 companies, but that's fine. So the bottom line is that since you have a remote team, then leverage that to find more people. Have your pipeline full of candidates, always full. Then have a system that filters them to keep the best of the best. You can do that by giving them a task that they would do for free to prove that they are motivated and interested to join your organization. Then from your current team, who is not performing at the right level? Then swap them, fire the bad people and replace them with your most motivated candidate. If your team is performing well, then just do that every 6 months. In this way, you will always have the most performing people. And when your team overperforms, then you don't worry about clock in, clock out and this kind of thing. You don't worry about dramas, you just worry about giving them the proper tool, the right task, and let their genius outperform.